like and subscribe. Women with toxic neglectful mothers, how did you learn to cope with your poor relationship with your mom? How did it change how you viewed women in general? Did it change which women you let into your life? I read a book called Running on Empty which helped me to identify the exact neglect I knew I was dealing with. Learned my attachment style, insecure, and then became a mental health nurse. Had 2 children. Learned the hard way that your brain will try to parent the way you were parented. Parenting courses. 17 years a qualified nurse, 2 years of therapy. I think I'm good now. Try to find you in all the hurt. I went to therapy and forgave her for not knowing what she was doing. She does not know that and it does not matter. I removed her from my life permanently. It did not affect how I view other women. I just wish people knew that toxic mothers exists, and they do not think I am the problem. Some people really do not know, and do not believe this, and think that there is something wrong with me, that I should always be loving towards my family. That is the biggest sad thing in life, when I meet people that do not even know the experience or existence of people who simply was not lucky. She's out of my life. Made me vow to love fiercely, and be the exact opposite. Edit, thank you so much for the upvotes and love. I'm so glad that we've channeled, trying, our anger and hurt and grief into something strong and beautiful. Grew up with a super narcissistic and toxic mother who to this day I am still sifting through all of the negativity she put into my brain. I am 29 now. Earlier this year, after a tantrum she had, because something was not done her way, to her standards, without her being asked first about it, I decided it was time to cut her out of my life. It makes me sad seeing women her age, that have great relationships with their daughters, which is something she always wanted with us. But her personality is so toxic with her always being #1 that it was not ever, and will never be possible. It has definitely taken its toll with how I trust women in general. I always think, what is your motive for asking me about X, Y, or Z, or why do you want to know that, or why do you want to do something with me? Everything. Everything. Everything growing up that involved her was always a ploy for something she either wanted or wanted to change about her daughters. Has not really changed which women are let into my life, since I really do not associate with people in my day-to-day life that are her age. But sure, when someone of mom age approaches me, I get instantly uncomfortable and on the defense. Boundaries. I do not see her often, or it is too much for me. We do not call, but we do talk on Messenger every single day, like we are best friends. I'm in a unique position, where my mother is always actively trying to be better. Sometimes she takes step backs of course, and we get into disagreements of complex topics. She still does a lot of damage, without her talking to me as a relationship's very complex. There is a lot of love, but she also is very understanding, that her behavior during my childhood and adolescence was abusive, leading to many MH issues including CPTSD, in pretty much all forms. I'm 22 now. Just like the abuse I have endured from men, it does not make me see men or women differently. Everything is situational and everyone deserves a chance. That does not mean I'm very easily trusting, or that I do not panic even with people I'm comfortable with. I have gone no contact, got counseling to unlearn the negative self-image I learned from her. I'm working on boundaries with everyone in my life without feeling guilty. Just learning to love myself even without the toxic family in my life. It has affected friendships as I tended to gravitate to people that would treat me in toxic ways as well. I am unlearning that as well. I only look what people do to me per person. If one person is toxic, doesn't mean they are all toxic. And how I learned to cope? I didn't. My toxic mother died of lung cancer at the age of 47. While I was 19. She smoked so much, in the end she smoked up to 70 cigarettes a day. And then you are pretty much asking for cancer. And to be honest, we always fighted. It was like walking on glass all day for years. One wrong word, and I had to sit through a lecture for 1,5 hours. So you learn how to check the mood. So you know, if you should say something or not. and you learn how to lie. And how horrible it sounds. I'm glad she is gone. When she died, there suddenly was peace in the house. And now many years later, I don't even miss her. Semicolon. What did happen? I always heavily disliked smoking, but after my mother died like that, I downright started hating it. So much if my boyfriend would start smoking, I would break up with him. Not just because of the stench and costs, but also I don't want to lose him on a young age too. So far I have had to cut my mother out of my life. It is super hard for me to let women close to me. I never know if they are telling me the truth or just want me to bend to their will. I am very afraid of upsetting other women and what they'll do or say about me when I am not around. Having a toxic mother sucks. I don't know what a healthy cis female to cis female relationship feels like. My mother can be quite toxic and I have just limited how much time I spend with her. Has not changed my view on women. However, my mother had a really emotionally abusive relationship with her mother, and she now has a ton of internal misogyny and does not seem to trust or like women very much, one of the things that makes her quite toxic to me. My mother was neglectful more so than toxic. She was horribly abused physically and mentally by her parents, so she had no idea how to be a mother. She tried, but then took on a degree program at night for 10 years between my ages of 12 to 22. She pretty much neglected us, and left us to our own devices, after she started school. My dad was supposed to be taking care of us, but he never cooked, and mostly just went out with his friends. They were both neglecting us, and my dad was borderline abusive. They are also hoarders. Now she is disabled, and I help them on my terms, but it is hard to because it is really mentally unhealthy for me. My father calls me constantly, nearly every day. It is still a show. I handle it through therapy. I love women, and have deep relationships with them. I think that as a result of my deep bond with my sister. I'm still learning. It took a long time to even recognize the toxicity. After that it was a case of going very low contact. I moved away, and don't contact her about anything. Then it was dealing with my feelings of guilt around that, but also processing that it's okay to put myself first. Nowadays I cope by just not really thinking about it, and by living my best life. My success in everything else, the support systems I have now, that all helps me to feel better about having grown up in a crappy abusive situation. And I channel that feeling of injustice in the work I do, which involves supporting kids from disadvantaged backgrounds. I don't think it's ever affected how I feel about other women or women in general though. I mean, it's not difficult to separate the actions of one person from everyone else. The vast majority of women I interact with are great people. I have lots of female friends and I'm a woman myself, and I'm nothing like my mother. I could write a novel about this. It took some therapy, and being in the real world, to realize just how abusive she really is. Once I went no contact, my life became immensely more peaceful. My therapist, my aunt and my husband understood and supported the no contact. My cousin and my uncle went no contact years before I did. She treats people terribly, and I learned to treat people terribly as well, and then I wondered why I did not have many friends. I am trying to be a better person and a better friend and a better partner. I think the one objective thing I can say about how it has affected who I let into my life is that my mother is a pathological liar, so I pick up on that really easily. People who are habitual liars/exaggerators that other people might not pick up on, or might still hang out with because they are fun, or whatever, I really cannot tolerate that. I just cope, LMAO. My mother has always been someone that I viewed as evil, horrible, toxic, and maybe I am right. She is mainly the reason why I struggle so much with mental illness, and whenever I need her, mentally need her, she either makes it worse by being there, or she just is not there at all. With that said, I have grown to admire her. I have had multiple situations this year where she had to take care of me, and being together for hours on end with nothing to do, we bonded immensely. She told me about her childhood, and how rough it was, her first love, her regrets and mistakes. It was like there was my mom who I have known and feared all my life, and then there was this broken, unhealed lady that honestly deserved better. I wish I can say that she changed her ways after this. For a split second I thought she would, but she just got back to doing what she does. Except now I just know why she is the way that she is, because of circumstances outside of her control. My experience has led me to the decision of not wanting a child. I learned as much about her as I could. She came from a very abusive home, and spent the rest of her life jumping from frying pan to fire to escape bad situations. To understand how badly her parents ate her up, although it was the 1940s and divorce just wasn't a thing, when Granddad hit my grandma, she left him. Just up, packed a bag, and went back to her parents. She was eventually convinced to return, and he never hit her again. However, rather than punishing them herself, she would tell tales on her children, so their father would beat them when he got home from work. She left home at 16, and joined the Air Force. Her younger brothers hate her leaving them behind. I don't know how they expected a 16-year-old girl to be able to take and care for them, but she got out, and they had to wait until they were of age. Middle brother left home at 18 and never returned. Youngest brother stayed home until he was in his 20s. Granddad stopped the abuse once they outgrew him and could hit back. Granddad was 5 feet 8 inches, uncle was 6 feet 1 inch, so he hung around for a bit. Anyway, mum hated the Air Force. She met my dad and married him much too soon, so she could demob and leave. It wasn't a happy marriage because they were far too different, so they moved to America. She got pregnant, had the baby, then they returned after a year, when his contract wasn't renewed, and had no choice but to move in with her parents again. She hated it. They rented a house that still had gas lighting, and needed total renovations and an extension, because it didn't even have an indoor toilet. Tenants were basically in for life back then though, so they did the renovations themselves. She did not enjoy the project. His parents visited, they took their bedroom, the only finished bedroom, and I owe my life to the fact she wasn't used to drinking, but had 2 gin and tonics that night. I was not planned, I was not wanted, but maybe another baby would magically fix what the first did not. I didn't, so she left him when I was 18 months old. This pattern basically went on for the rest of her life with businesses, boyfriends, husbands. She emigrated again, and returned again. I began to see her as just one more flawed human being. If I wasn't her daughter, I'd feel sorry for her. If I read her life story, I think she did her best, but she wasn't able to form healthy relationships. For example, she respected men with strong personalities, and was attracted to them. However, she only dated weak men that she could control, because strong men also scared her. Unfortunately, this meant she didn't respect the men she dated, which is pretty important. I always knew she didn't like me, but everyone denied it. My sister thought I was the favorite, while I thought she was, because mum used divide and conquer to control us, and played us off against each other. Other relatives saw how much she cuddled me, and thought it was love, but it was like I was a puppy. Yes, she was physically affectionate, but like with every pet we've ever owned, she didn't want to do any of the real work of being a pet owner, or a parent. Now mum has dementia, and can't hide her true feelings anymore. People can see for themselves what I've known all my life. She really does not like me, or enjoy my company. She's happier to see my service dog than me. My sister had it just as bad, but in other ways. Being older and more like mum, she parentified my sister, and made her responsible for her mental state. It's disconcerting watching my sister trying to talk our single parent out of leaving home. It must have been even worse for her, knowing if she failed, we'd be all alone. We were kids, we didn't know what would happen if she left, and didn't come back. There was also a lot of financial abuse as we got older, loans, and credit cards taken out in our names. Seeing her as a whole person, not miss my mum, allowed me to take her down off her pedestal. Her insults to me no longer hurt, because she's just another ed up person, and I don't actually respect her, so why would I respect her opinion? I've forgiven her, but I've never told her that. She would never admit she's done anything wrong anyway. But forgiving her wasn't about her, it was about getting her, and her hateful words out of my head, freeing myself from her. Every now and again I learn some new head up she did that takes a while to process, but I manage. You've been visited by the ghost of a very important man. Pay your respects by liking and subscribing, and he'll grant you 3 weeks of good luck.